July meeting of the Dixon Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Let's start the meeting with the pledge to our flag. Mark, if you're there, if you could cue up the flag video. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Please be seated. Okay, this is our second time using the Zoom platform, and it looks like we will be continuing to use it till we get a break from the coronavirus situation. I was talking to Mark and Brian. Hopefully the vaccine will come along quickly, and maybe by the end of the year we will be in a better spot. But until then, we are kind of stuck with doing our meeting as we're currently doing it. Welcome, Lloyd. It's nice to have you here from the school board. Obviously, as usual, we have School Superintendent Brian Dolan, and we have Lee Coop from School Site Solutions. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
For the school district folks, I'm very appreciative of your time. You guys have put in Zoom meetings, I think, almost every night this week, and a big one for tomorrow. So hopefully you'll get a break on Friday. I do thank you for putting in the time to maintain a connection with the Dixon community, both from the school perspective and now from the bond oversight perspective. Mark, as usual, thank you for serving as Zoom host. Mark will be serving as moderator for this evening, similar to his roles that he serves during the school board meeting. So if the time comes to be recognized, you can just move your mouse cursor down to the bottom of your screen. You should see something that says participants. If you click on that, it will bring up a nice list of all the participants, and you should be listed at top. And there's a little icon to the right of your name with raise hand. So Mark can see that if we have a lineup for public comment. To the members of the public, I appreciate you for taking time out on your Wednesday evening to log into the Bond Oversight Committee. And to the regulars, again, I appreciate your time to participate. We have a full agenda tonight and a lot of material to cover. Georgette and I received a large amount of requested information from the school district, and Lee Coop helped summarize that as part of our role with School Site Solutions. So we got everything we needed, and this enabled Georgette to complete our final report to the community, covering the financial aspects from July 2018 to June 2019. I do realize that we have now been lapped by the calendar, and I share your disappointment in that. We've had council meetings, we've had COVID, we've had Zoom meetings, and it took a little more time to get all the information that we needed. Nonetheless, I appreciate the work that Georgette did to provide a comprehensive summary. So after we get feedback on her report, we'll make the needed corrections, adjustments, and we'll post it to the CBOC website. And I will write up a 3-page summary for release to the 2 Dixon newspapers. So with that being said, and I think we now have, well, still just the 4 people. I know Robert Sanchez indicated he might be really late because he's tied up at work. And let's start our meeting with our roll call. So I obviously am here. Gary Riddle.
I'm here.
Andrea Kett. Julie Mustard. You here? I hear you. I see you. Okay. Georgette.
Here.
Okay. And Robert is absent. So we have everyone but Robert. Okay. Let's move on to adoption of the agenda. I will take a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Okay,
I move that we approve.
adopt the agenda. Okay, do I have a second for? Second, please.
I second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to the minutes, the unadopted meetings from the last unadopted minutes from the last meeting. I just had one comment on page 3, section 4, on towards the bottom of the page, review of annual report to the citizens. Chairperson Smith asked for general feedback to the updated letter. That would be to the updated report. Superintendent Dolan will coordinate to meet with Ms. Coop and Member Portier to get additional information. So that needs to be added. The updated report will be posted through email. No, we're going to post that on our website. So just a couple corrections there. That's all I saw.
Can you hear me? This is Gary.
Hi, Gary. Yes.
I don't know, for some reason I've lost my screen, but I just want to make sure that the minutes, the minutes reflect it. I know you changed the unadopted minutes, but I still wasn't there, so I can't attest anything other than the fact that I wasn't there.
Well, since we're recording all of this, the minutes are more or less a summary. I mean, the video recording of the minutes of the meeting is now the documentation of it. So if anyone needs to go back and see what was done earlier on, they can. That's one of the advantages of having the Granicus system. Everything's recorded, so we're not so dependent on having a verbatim recording based on the minutes. So it's more of a streamlined version.
Well, I'm going to ask for a little more clarification on how to access the meeting, because I couldn't see the recording of the last meeting. It wouldn't come up. All I got was the screen, but it didn't show the meeting.
So the Granicus system, which is up and running and has all the dates in it, has no video with it. So the last CBOC meeting, I had a problem downloading the Zoom video. This one is being recorded, and we will place the Zoom meetings on the CBOC web pages to view. The Granicus system, we can't upload until we're back at the city. Does that make sense?
Well, I thought that was the case, but I wasn't sure.
You were correct. So Granicus, even though has a placeholder for tonight's meeting and all the board meetings, there's nothing there because it only works from the city's facilities. So if you look on the Dixon USD webpage, you'll see Board of Education, and below that you'll see Zoom meetings. We're going to do the same thing for CBOC, where you'll click on that and then you'll see tonight's Zoom meeting uploaded once we get the video saved tonight and rendered tomorrow to be able to be viewed.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I should have realized that because I've looked at it from the Zoom recordings. So back to the minutes. Any other adjustments on the unadopted minutes?
I don't have any.
Okay. So Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the unadopted meetings with the change that I made just to clarify the annual report feedback. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Jet made the motion. I can second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
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 Okay, minutes approved. We have nothing on the consent calendar, so it's time to open up this meeting for public comment for items that are not listed on the agenda. So non-scheduled items, please. Mark, do we have anybody?
I'm seeing nobody from the public, sorry.
Okay. Then no public comment. I did receive one letter from Ginger Emerson. She is expressing concern about the fact that we're continuing to have these meetings on the Zoom platform. She indicated she will not attend such meetings and stated that other accommodations should be made. I responded to her with the governor's latest ruling, prohibiting activities in public places and the fact that we don't have access to City Hall right now. We're kind of stuck. So Mark, is there any plan either at the school board level or for the CBOC to do something different before the end of the year? Or are we pretty well stuck with this format?
I do not have any alternative to a distance or online meeting at this time.
Brian, you've had a lot of discussions with other superintendents, other school districts. Are they all doing online meetings? Is there any exception to that in
Yeah.
the area?
Pretty much. There are a couple of districts I'm aware of that are holding their board meetings in their boardrooms. However, both the districts I'm aware of have the broadcast and streaming capabilities in their own boardroom, so it's within their own facilities. So we're dependent on the city to use the chambers and their systems. And obviously the city is not holding its meetings in the open building either. I do know that from a conversation a couple of weeks ago that the city has or is awarding a contract for the upgrade of all of their audiovisual equipment, and that I guess they're going to have a Zoom capacity as part of that. But I can't foresee that they would open the facility before that work was done, never mind what's happening with the virus. So I think, yes, there are other districts holding their meetings in person, but they all have the ability to broadcast and stream themselves.
Thank you. So I think we are going to have to continue the status quo. I've pretty much already given my update from the chair. So let's move on to the update from the Dixon superintendent. Brian?
Yes. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining in the meeting. I'm looking, and I still think we don't have any members of the public with us. We had a couple, and I think they left. So very briefly, we have had some impact over on the project, the John Knight Middle School project related to the virus, some supply issues, some work crew folks who had tested positive. So there's been a little bit more working from home for some of the personnel, and just some reduced force over there for a time while they made sure that everybody was clear. So just as of yesterday, they're at about 90% of full crews present there. And none of that is related to COVID at this point in time. They're all, it's just a matter of availability of workers for other reasons. So we are moving closer to being ready to go out to bid for the kitchen remodel and the window replacement. Plans were submitted to DSA some time ago. The architect received those back recently with a bunch of comments that were not expected. They had new reviewers working on them. So hopefully within the next several weeks, the DSA issues will be resolved and we'll be able to go out to bid for the window replacement and kitchen remodel. We've got metal roof materials have arrived. The multipurpose room small gym building, so the side of the campus out on 4th Street, that'll have metal roofing just like A-Wing out front. So all those materials have arrived now, so installation will begin shortly. And then all of our roofing work will be done at that point in time. If you drive by, you're starting to see a little more exterior painting getting done. We have the some paving work that's going on the east side of the campus, fire lane. There will be some work done to add a couple basketball courts over there as well. We have this nightmare in A-Wing with a 2-hour firewall that has to run from the foundation up to the roof line. That has been a very, very complicated part of the project. Framing is done on that finally. It is a factor in the timing of the project at this point. It's just been kind of a black hole for time and unfortunately for money as well. And that requirement is a 2-hour firewall. The as-built design plans showed that 2-hour firewall was in place, and in reality, when they got in there, it wasn't. So a very complicated renovation to make.
Is this still that same firewall that we saw or looked at?
Yes, still working on it, Tad, right? Still working
By
on it.
this old school theater that was there?
Yep, you
Wow.
got it, sir. Yeah. Thanks for remembering. We're modifying the ramp between A-Wing and B-Wing. That work is now done, so it now meets ADA compliance. We had change order number 6 approved by the governing board. That's in your materials tonight. At our last meeting, floor. Well, we'll look at it later. But we had a lot of flooring issues were a big component of that change order. So that is my update for tonight.
Okay. Lee, did we have any updates on the contracts agreements?
I think I'll speak for Lee. We've got a bunch of those later in the agenda, so I think we'll just deal with those at that time, if that's okay.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So then we're able to go on to item 4. Lee, that is your part of going through the budget.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Smith, members of the CBOC, Superintendent Dolan, and members of the public. Good evening. My name is Lee Coop with School Site Solutions, Inc., and I'm here to discuss not only this item, but numerous of the items that you have before you tonight. School Site Solutions has been hired, and we work with the district for program and project management for Measure Q and non-Measure Q projects. So I'm happy to go over the numerous handouts that we have on this item. This is a typical thing that we go through every CBOC meeting, and we'll take them in order. I believe they're in the correct order, of my preferred order in the agenda. And so the first one will be the master program budget. You should have that in front of you. That's a vertical letter orientation. Looks kind of like that. And you'll see it's updated through June 30th. So we're at the end of the fiscal year, which is a nice break. So you'll be able to see things that have happened up to this year, up to the end of this fiscal year. I would just point you to couple of the changes and then a summary of it. I've added in under the funding side at the top, the top half of the first page, you see funding. If you go down to 2027, 28, I've projected in the $2.8 million that is possible from state funding for Anderson. So we wanted to add that in to kind of start to give a more complete picture of what we think might be happening as we refine the program as we go through the years. So that adds a couple, almost $3 million of revenue, which hadn't been showing before. Now, mind you, that is merely a projection. It's more than speculation, but it's merely a projection. We have no idea if the state funding will continue, if the state will ever pass another bond, and that's what it would rely on. So there's a lot of ifs in there and assumptions, but I did add it in, and we'll keep monitoring that for a reality check. But it does allow us to talk about the future projects a little bit better. You see that there's Anderson in here, and also I now show Sylvieville Fire and Life Safety as complete. So that's in the green column down below when you see the projects. An extra added attraction that I've done on this and almost all of the other projects is if you flip to page 2, I now do a hard and soft cost analysis. And I've done that on the whole program and then every project that is active. You can see at the top of that, there's a guideline for modernization projects, public school projects, K-12 in California. We're looking at a guideline of you try to hit about 70% or more hard costs. That's the shovels in the ground, hammers, nails, construction. I also include furniture in that, since that is a part of the project. And then you have 30% in there for soft costs, or what I call construction related costs. And those are by no means costs that you can get rid of. But you try to make those as efficient as possible. And those include things like program and project management, architect, inspector, testing labs, site surveys, any of those things that have to do, that aren't construction, basically. So you can see that we're hitting pretty well on our program so far. You see the hard costs, I have those columns first. That's at 83.8%. so far, and soft cost at 16.2%. So we're hitting pretty well on that. This is a nice analysis for not only us to see, but for you and the public to see of whether the constant sort of watch out is, are we getting our best bang for the buck for the myriad of the consultants and things, people that we have to have in order for these projects to happen? And we are. In my opinion, we are. So that is also used. Oh, one other thing you'll see on Anderson. If you go back to the first page, current budget is at 5.6 million, 5.581 million. And I would just note on there that we will be able to add in more, we hope. So you go down to the bottom of that Measure Q bond project, you see a program remaining balance of 2.469. That means that's the kind of money that could be added into Anderson. So if you add that in and you add in the inflation, we're up to about 9.4, and we hope to even get it up higher. So we want to be able to complete John Knight Middle School in a functional, operational way, and then also be able to have a good amount of money for Anderson. And I think it's happening so far. Nothing guaranteed, of course, until a project is complete. Any questions on that one? That's sort of the overview of the whole kit and caboodle, the whole program.
It's really nice to see all of those line items turning green on your first page summary.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's very nice.
Miss Lee, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Why is Tremont backed out of the second page? It says Tremont future projects not included.
Well, nothing's happening on those yet, so there's no real reason for me to actually, I can put a projected one in like I did for Anderson, and I will when they get more towards real projects. We're thinking about possibly shuffling on the schedule to bring up Anderson into a higher priority level on scheduling. So I haven't included that, but that's the reason.
I think my main concern would be just that, you know, I'd prefer to see that both pages balance out, that they're the same amount. I think that's more my concern.
What that the 2 pages?
So, right, you know how like on your first page, your current budget for the overall projects, it's
Right.
35 mil?
Right.
Okay, so then I would prefer to see that the second page is 35 mil.
Yeah, got it. Can
So,
do.
okay, thank you.
Slightly different analysis, but I can do that. That's fine.
Okay.
Good point. Um,
One general question for the John Knight Middle School renovation. You got listed 50% complete. That only goes back to the end of the fiscal year. I assume right now we're a little past 50%. We'd almost have to be.
Well, remember, no, this is for the whole project, multi-years, but remember, this is just money-wise, Tad. It's not construction level,
Okay.
things like that. It's just how much money have you spent versus how much you think you're going to spend. And so you see expense to date is
Yep.
around 11.3. That's
Yep.
about half of the 22. That's all that means. It's not the construction.
Okay. So it doesn't tie into the construction, but does that imply that we're going to be spending 50% more money on the school at some point?
Yes. To finish it, we'll get to the 22 million. Yeah.
You will.
Yep.
And
I think so. It would be nice if we didn't. We had
by,
less
by December.
by the end of the project. Yep. Yeah. So we'll be having some fairly big progress payments coming up from Burco. And remember, we've got furniture to purchase. We've got technology to purchase. So there's a lot of big ticket items that are coming up.
All right. Thank you.
Project is still due to be done in December, move-in in January. Still on track for that?
Yes.
So far, so good.
Yep.
Okay.
So
And of
Ms.
course,
Lee,
at this point of 2020, we know. Right? Yeah. But anyway, yes.
So far.
Yes.
sorry, Ms. Lee, I had a question. So when you said that that expense column, is that encumbrance or is that just actual payments sent
That's
out?
actual payments.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't include encumbrance then. I
Yeah,
got
it's
you.
actually expense to date. Yeah.
Okay.
I could say paid to date, something like that. That might make more sense, but it's what we've used, expense. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one, which is the program. And this is one of the many landscape orientations. And remember, the program is the costs that cannot be associated with any one particular project. So that includes the staff-related costs, such as Rose, and includes my time as well when I work on things like this. And any other thing that you cannot actually assign to a particular project. Also, the contingencies go in this as well. So that is the major part of this one. Really, the only change that's happened on this one is some staff costs as we go through the typical few $1,000s or a couple $1,000s that get added in every month on staff. And the other change would be making sure that on the program management, it's budgeted correctly. In other words, my time. And otherwise, there's really no change. What we want to see on this is a nice steady flow of expenses on this, which is what we have. Now, I can see coming up that we might have some additional legal costs that you can associate program-wide and not to one particular project, such as getting some templates ready. But any particular contracts, we would associate that with legal for some of its project. So, for example, architect contract coming up for Anderson. The majority of that can be actually assigned to program, this one, because it's kind of a template that we would use for many projects, but some of it we will assign to Anderson as well. So that's kind of example of something that might be coming up. But otherwise, there's not too much action on this. And if you flip to the last page, you'll see how does this work that a program budget has 80% hard costs? Well, that's because the contingencies are in there. The vast majority of this program budget are contingencies that will eventually go toward projects. They won't stay in program. They won't be soft costs. So you've got an 80-20 split on this, which is still good. Questions?
On your last page, that box area, major budgets in these 3 categories, some of that's clipped off, but what is that SSSI thing?
Oh, okay. So I had some other analysis. That is some of the program costs that are the largest ones would, I kind of put those into a box. So
Okay.
for example, bond issuance costs,
Right.
SSI, school site solutions, cooperative strategies, staff, and legal. Those are kind of the
Okay.
major costs that you see in there.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure I've asked this before and I don't remember. Warranty callback. What was that again? That was $100,000.
So as projects get finished, we generally have a 1 to 2 year warranty on items in the contract, everything from materials to the construction itself. Sometimes there are warranty callbacks that aren't covered by warranties. They're callbacks. We kind of group them under that. So like within the first year of the finish of a project, if something is not a warranty under warranty where say the contractor is paying for it, we want to have a little bit of contingency there for that. We hope, that's why it's a very small amount, because mostly you'd want it under warranty. So moving on to the very active project, the John Knight Middle School. The changes that you would see on this, you see a change order 6 in the amount that was approved by the board. That's on page 2. Under construction costs, that's the major costs, of course, in this one, and which is construction. And a predicted change order 7 at 1.2, but now I'm seeing that it is lower than that. It's maybe around 700,000 or 800,000. But that happened after this was already published. The other change would be the kitchen and window projects. You see, I've separated that out as not part of Burco because it's actually a separate bid. So you see in the construction cost section 500, if you go down into the, if you have it in yellow, you see it in yellow, you see a bunch of the change orders for Burco, and then skip down and you've got a separate bid for the windows and kitchen, which we don't know, but we're estimating around 3.2 million, 3 million right now. The only other change then, I've included the change order costs in taking out of contingency. And if you go to the back page again, I did a hard and soft cost analysis, and we are at 86% hard, 13% soft, which is also very good.
Ms. Lee, what's I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Georgia.
Ms. Lee, what's the potential change order 7 for? What? Because I know you're going to talk about change order 6, but
Right. There, change order 7 comprises various unforeseen and district requested items. It's not any one particular big item. Oh, Brian, help me out. I can't remember what.
I just, my mind went absolutely blank on it. I could do,
It's
I could
those
do
items.
6 inside out. I'm trying to think of, oh, okay. So one thing that'll be in there, we're going to add some paving on the east side of the campus where the portables used to be. We have very uneven surfacing and poor drainage. So we're going to add, so we have some paving we have to add there for fire lane, and that was not in contract. And then what district directed is to add some basketball courts as part of a request from the PE staff. So that's a big chunk. I think that's about $250,000 or so. And that's what I'm remembering as of this moment of the big stuff. I would imagine change order 7 would be ready to go to the board perhaps for our July 30th meeting or August 6th at the latest, I think.
Yeah.
I know last time we had asked to see copies of the change orders. Did we get those this time?
Yes, you have change order 6 as an item on the agenda.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm sorry, I can't remember any more of the specific items on change order 7. Brian, I think, yeah, Brian's correct in that the paving is a big chunk of it.
That's a big one, yeah. We also have some, no, that was in number 6. I was gonna say casework, but that's in 6.
That's in this one. Yeah.
And remember that change order 6 that was approved at a school board meeting about 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was about 11:15 actually. Yeah.
So any other questions on John Knight?
Just real quick, the kitchen upgrade window replacement still on your expected timeline with the bids still going out? Think you can get the work done? Everything looks all
Yeah,
right?
you know, I made a mention of that earlier. So, you know, we had submitted, drawings existed. Those were submitted to DSA back when we thought it might just be a change order. And then when we got a sense of the costs of both the windows and the kitchen, we couldn't do it as a change order. We'd be exceeding the regs on how much was being expended on change orders. So we had to go out to bid. So that meant all the plans had to be resubmitted for DSA approval. A different team of reviewers was assigned, right? So they had, as change order, those plans had been approved. They got resubmitted with a little bit of difference to them. They got resubmitted now as something that was going to go out to bid, a full separate project instead of a change. And that went to a new team of reviewers, and that team of reviewers sent a bunch of questions back to LPA that the first team had already asked and been answered. So that slowed things down. The architect team is answering those questions now. As soon as we have the DSA approval, we will go out to bid and make sure that we're pushing that thing along. So we do know it's going to be, given everything going on out there, it's going to be a tight timeline, but we're pushing and pushing and pushing.
All right.
Berco's still, you know, feeling confident that we're going to get that done, and that's as long as things like equipment and glass and those types of things are available on timelines for delivery that they've already talked about.
Right.
Okay, excellent. Keep us informed.
So
We will.
I would just add to that, Brian, if I could.
Please.
CBOC members, you will see an item coming up in your agenda tonight that has to do with RGA and a legacy closeout.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Lee.
And that, as we've talked about this before, so Division of the State Architect had a backload of unclosed out projects that were historical projects, some of them 30, 40 years old. Instead of sort of letting districts say, okay, let's do an inspection, these are occupied, these are all buildings that were done, now they've been occupied for 30 years, sometimes they've already been torn down and new schools have been built. Over the years, DSA has required districts that when they put in a project to get plan approval and they find, another project, an old, we call them legacy project, pops up in their file system, in their tracking system, they will oftentimes halt the approval of the current project. That, unfortunately, is what's happening at the windows and kitchen project. When the architect got the comments back on their plans, one of the comments said, oh, by the way, you have a project, number 02-100-830. I like the kitty cat. That number is seared into my brain now because I'm doing stuff with it every day. That project that was, I think that's from the 1990s, that we cannot stamp your plans, this window and kitchen bid, we cannot do that until you get that one closed out. Right. Yeah, so one thing Jim and I were puzzling over, why wasn't that said at the beginning of the big project, the big modernization project? Why did DSA catch something like that on this little project? We don't know. DSA is a mystery and a black hole. We don't know. And but that is what they said. So you'll see in another agenda item, RGA, which is in our new architect pool. They are really, really helping us with getting that other one closed out. And and I've been in the art district archives a couple times, which is a dusty room of files, 3 rooms of files over in the maintenance yard with Mark and with Stephanie Arias, who's the secretary, the administrative assistant to maintenance department, going through and trying to find project files, going through and trying to find plans. And it's basically paperwork. It's, for example, it's a form called a Form 6 for the architect, a Form 6 for the inspector. Now, the architecture firm no longer exists. The inspector was gotten a hold of, but has not replied. Oftentimes people are deceased, firms are dissolved, and districts are still expected to figure this out. So right now where we are is we know that we have to get a project inspector to look at the scope. The old scope of that project doesn't even exist anymore. So it's just an interesting chasing paper. And it's very frustrating, but it has to be done. And
this goes back to 1990, you said, roughly?
In the 1990s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Head scratcher.
yeah, and it's, like I said, it's not anything to do with safety of the buildings or the occupancy, like, oh, did we like build something and not get it approved? No, it was all done correctly. It's just paperwork to close out the projects. And anyway, so that's part of the work that's being done right now. And we do have to have that done. So that holds up a project, has the ability to hold up that project, which we are feverishly trying not to have that happen.
And this just pertains to the windows, or is it tie into the kitchen as well?
This is one project. Windows and kitchen are one bid.
Okay.
So it's,
Right.
and it doesn't even have to do with the windows or the kitchen.
I understand. Yep.
Yeah. It's just on the campus. It's a project that was done in the 90s on the campus. Okay, so I wanted to add that in. It's kind of a bummer, but there it is. Okay, moving on. I'm going to move on to Anderson.
I have a quick question, Ms.
Sorry.
Lee.
Sorry, Georgette.
No, it's okay. So for contingencies for the JKMS, how much you got left? About 153 left. Is that correct?
Yep.
Plus the whatever is your savings, the difference for change order 7?
Yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Yep, we're getting down to the wire. If you go past contingencies, then we've got to pull money out of Measure Q, which means pulling money out of Anderson. That's what that means. So you see that change order 7's already in there at a high amount now, we know. So we're doing our best to try to hold that down. We've still got several months of this project.
So what % complete do you think JKMS is right now, roughly?
Brian, do you go to the meetings?
You go to those meetings. It varies, wing by wing. If I took it that way, C wing is very far along, and Tad has seen the campus. So A wing is lagging the most, I think, because of that darn 2-hour wall. B wing, very easy completion. C wing, very easy completion. Gym locker rooms are coming along. That's the only issue there. Music room, very near completion. Flooring in the small gym completed. Multi-purpose room / kitchen work, largely yet to be begun. And roofing, other than the MP room, small gym building, we're at 95%. We're at about that 50% on that MP small gym roof, but the materials are there. They just have to be installed. So I guess I don't feel confident in giving you a good number overall completion. But our biggest issues of the first phase of the project are in A wing. We are behind in A wing. I think we're on schedule everywhere else on the campus. And then adding in the windows in the kitchen is the other big piece that obviously challenges that completion percentage.
Okay.
All right. Not seeing any other questions. I'll go move on to Anderson. Anderson, you'll start seeing a report every meeting, but really there has not been any activity. By the next time, we will be moving forward with most likely getting the architect contract prepared and getting the architect on board, having board approval of that, and you guys to see that as well. Lining up the team, any kind of other surveyors, engineers, anything like that. We start to line up cost estimators, plan reviewers, things like that. And then once the architect gets on board, we will start to sit with them on schedule, budget refinement, and getting the team on board. So you'll start to see more activity on that. And you notice it's phase 1. We still anticipate breaking Anderson into 2 phases, of which we won't be able to say what do those phases look like until we have our team put together and the architect gets a good chance to see what would make the most sense on that. Really no activity on that. You do see the hard and soft cost analysis, which right now is 77 to 22. And that'll change as we get our budget in alignment with what's really happening. Next one is Sylvieville. The only reason this is on here is because we finally closed out with the end of the year, we closed out the architect contract. So that purchase order has been closed and this is 100% complete. So you won't see any more Sylvieville Fire and Life Safety Project. As you recall, this was the one where we saved almost $1 million by not having to do the project, which was a great thing. That's $1 million that went into other projects. And you see 100% soft costs because there was no construction there on that last page. So that will be the last one on that project. This is the last report you'll see. Next one is Tremont. This is the last one. Administrative reconfiguring. The only change on this is that Jim put in a few, well, I don't know whether it was a couple hours or whatever it was, on, I think it was $290 on project management, construction management. I think he did a little bit of work with the strategizing on the planning on that. And that was pretty much it. Otherwise, we're considering moving Anderson up in priority and seeing where the Tremont projects fit. So for me, and I think for the district, for the taxpayers, I think Anderson was the next most important project besides John Knight Middle School. So we're going to start focusing our efforts in on that. So you'll see Tremont and admin, but that may drop out also until we get that going. And I'll add the hard and soft cost analysis on that, Georgette, on that one. So that's the agenda item on that. I would ask this that you approve this as a valid Measure Q expenditure. So it's an action item.
So as an action item, I will take a motion to approve these as valid Measure Q expenses as presented to the CBOC tonight. Do I have a motion there?
This is Andrea. I'll second.
Well, you're the first.
Did you make the motion? It sounded like you made the motion, Ted.
Begging someone to make the motion.
I move.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye. Nobody
Aye.
opposed? Very good.
Right.
Thanks, Lee.
Tad, is it okay if I go forward with the next item?
Yeah, let's go ahead, timeline, then let's open it up to public or other questions.
Okay, so you have a summary timeline. Thank you very much, Tad. You have a summary timeline. Really not too much change on it. We're in that phase where we've got Sylvieville complete. Now we list that. And where we're reviewing the schedule on the Tremont projects, like what I just said, maybe shuffling that lower in priority. and having Anderson phase 1, phase 2. Not prepared to break that out and do that yet, give you a timeline until we get the team on board and get that sorted. What we do know is that those phase 1 and phase 2 both rely on state funding to come in. For first phase would be the almost $4 million from John Knight Middle School will then be plowed into Anderson, and that will help us do phase 1. And then we wait until we get we apply for Anderson in 22-23 for state funding, and then that wouldn't be projected to come in because of the waiting list until 27-28. So these things get really extended out when you're relying on state funding that's pretty unclear right now, since the state voters saw to approve a state bond. So it goes out a long way. And we could make the decision to say, well, we're not going to wait for state funding, and we can do that as well, and just have a minor project on that second phase, and then move forward with it when we can. But otherwise, those would be the things that, to me, of importance on that schedule.
Okay, good. And it seems like a good break to stop for questions. So I will ask if there are CBOC members who have any general questions.
I have questions, Tad.
Okay.
Ms. Lee, for the Tremont, based on the schedule, both Tremont, I guess the Tremont admin reconfig, do you guys usually go through the conceptual and then go to the board for approval? Is that how you guys usually do that?
There was a conceptual, we hired an architect to do a conceptual design on it, which you see when you look at the budget and expenditure report. And it stopped at that point because we needed to get the architect pool selected, which we now have.
Right.
And then we've been strategizing with the administration on really what is the important project. And an idea popped up of let's focus in on Anderson. I think the retaining wall is a safety issue that we might have to tackle next. And then also we are thinking, Brian, actually you had some ideas on how we could downscope but still achieve the things on the Tremont admin. You might, if you
Yeah, that project is intended to be really reconfiguring the whole office structure and having a single point of entry into the campus. And that creates a whole new design inside the office, a new door, which currently on the wall that faces the parking lot. So as we're trying to manage costs and looking at how much additional we're investing over at JK, just talking about where we might be able to make adjustments, and we might be able to, I think we can, actually, I'll put it that way, achieve that security goal of having a single point of access over there by doing some creative fencing and perhaps having a buzz gate in the kind of the camera and buzz gate, those kind of features. So we haven't advanced past that concept at this point in time. Any work that we do over there would be a summer of 21 project, but it is a way that we think we can achieve that objective of making the campus more safe for a whole bunch less money than we've been talking about with the redesign and rebuild.
Any other questions from CBOC members?
This is very minor. Ms. Lee, if you could just, my suggestion on this project timeline chart is if you could put all the completed projects on top so I can see the flow of what projects are like next.
Sure.
That was all.
Definitely. I can move out the John Knight one out. And
So it sounds like, besides the John Knight, for sure, the district's looking at doing potentially Anderson next, and then there's some minor work maybe at the Tremont admin, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the sequence roughly. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
All right, good.
Any questions from members of the public? So we've covered a lot of budget issues and timeline issues. Mark, anybody?
I am seeing nobody at this time.
Okay, so let's move on to the vendor payments.
Thank you, Tad. These are backup documents that have been requested and supplied at every CBOC meeting. I added one this time, which is the vendor payments. So on the, Georgette, you asked for payment information, and it looks a little bit different because they can't sort it by, what I got from them is they can't sort it by the escape system, the accounting system cannot sort it by project. So I did. I sorted it by project. I got it into an Excel format and sorted it. And I've tried to put darker lines going across to show you the different projects. But these would be the vendor payments for all of the fiscal year 19 and 2019 to 2020. So that's back up for you to see. And then the second report is the fiscal report 03, which is all the financial activity. And this one again would be for the entire fiscal year this time. So you've got backup in that way, financial activity, which includes encumbrances, and then you have the payments on the other document. So these are backup. This is information only.
Georgette, any questions on that?
No, I actually like this, that they are sorted by contracts per se. I would suggest, or maybe it's just work for me, but my preference is to just kind of see in totality. I know we look at by fiscal year, but which is important. But my thing is that I need to see in totality how much, let's say, Burco's overall contract is and how much we've paid them, right? That's in your master, not master, your project budget per se, but not everybody's listed by consultants or vendors. You know what I mean?
No, it's just the major ones.
Right. These are just the major ones. So if I think the district doesn't the district have like a list of contracts, procure or contracts let out and how much they've, paid and how much is left, and overall, there has to be a way to print something like that.
We would have to create a report to do that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
School district accounting is not favorable to these kind of projects.
No.
And Monique Stovall, the CBO of the district, could attest to that. It's very difficult we basically have to create these separate reports because otherwise you would get it just year to year, and then you guys would have to add things up year to year. So when we asked the accounting department, give me all the payments that have been made to Burco, and then compare it to their contract. The best thing that you have are my reports, which show what's been paid out, what's encumbered. And that does show it. So it's this fund accounting thing is by year and by fund, which is the source of money. And it just doesn't align itself very well to construction projects. So we try to do the best we can with these types of reports for you.
Okay, then I may just have some here and there questions later on for, as a follow-up.
Sure.
Certainly.
All right. Next item, is that okay?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
move on to where we got the,
Change order
vendor-
number 6.
huh?
Change order number 6.
Yes.
All right, so you are seeing change order number 6 was approved by the board. There's a timeliness issue because the board meets every 2 weeks. They have the ability to approve changes on an active construction project, whereas we could not wait for 2 months to approve change orders. That's why you're seeing this after the board has already approved it. And so change order number 6 is $713,221.06. And we're happy to talk about any one item on here. You'll also see the completion date moving. So there's an extension to September 14th for Burco. So that's a big change on that. So the facilities subcommittee, which is Melissa Masita and Luke Foster, Superintendent Dolan, the construction team, myself, we walked the project talking about change order 6 and 7. And so we went through a number of these items with them, but I just wanted to let you guys know that and that was done. Entertain any questions on any particular line items. I think some of the big ones, the biggest one is the flooring, and that's page 3 of it, and it has to do with not only transition between rooms to the hallways, but also buckling original hardwood floor, how to deal with that, any kind of tile that needs to be replaced, and adding either carpet or tile on the various floors. There's just so many different flooring conditions, existing conditions on the flooring, that it was quite something to for the team to make that work, be ADA accessible and flow and be aesthetically pleasing as well, and functional for classrooms. That's kind of a big one.
Yeah, of the 713,000, about 260,000 of it is in flooring issues.
Yeah.
So that's the big chunk. There's another large chunk I mentioned earlier in the casework. That's about $104,000. And that's where we got into it and found some of the casework just was not feasible to continue with. Thought we could save it and we couldn't. So some of that's in A wing, and there's some additional installs of it in C wing as well. So there's well over half of it just in floors and casework. I would note there is $66,000 that is the overhead for the project extension for Burco. So this does not cover construction elements. It's their overhead, their operational overhead, which is built into the original contract, but now because we've got the time extension, we pay that. So that's number 133 for almost $67,000. So those are the biggest chunks here. Many of the other smaller ones, you'll see that the vast majority of these are tied into unforeseen conditions. So again, they opened a wall, they pulled something off the ground, those types of things, and had to make, in some cases, small adjustments or repairs. In other places, really significant ones. And like I said, Lee said, we can answer any questions you have on any of the specific line items if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm a little bit advantaged because I heard superintendent go through this at the school board meeting. Just comment on the fact that you rejected a few things like the light poles near the tennis courts. You say $44,000 there.
Yeah, you know, this is not a rubber stamp system, and I credit Jim Bombachi for really pressing with the architect and the contractors on the legitimacy of any of the potential change orders. So you see a few here, a couple that he rejected. You also see some credits where, and again, not a lot of money. Well, there's at least $52,000 there, but some credits where, because of how things unfolded, we didn't do something that was in contract. So there's some give and take here, but obviously spending $713,000, it's a lot more give than take. But there's nothing here that is just a really fun, cool, isn't that a nice thing to do add on? We would say that these are all essentials.
Yeah, flooring and cabinets are not that exciting.
No, not fluffy.
Yeah.
So Tad, this was also an action item as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
Ms. Lee, I was just curious. This is just curiosity. How much is the liquidated damages per day for Burco?
I'm not 100% sure, but it might be between 500 and 1,000. That's pretty typical.
Yeah, it's a small amount like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Brian, usually we're not approving things that the school board's already acted on. We're just doing oversight. So is this really
Well,
an
no,
extra?
you know, Lee introduced this to us some time ago, and again, it's just validating that this is a legitimate Measure Q expense,
Okay,
right? Yeah, that's the process here, and I think it's a good one, and I think it helps with the accountability element of your work.
okay, very good. So CBOC members, I will ask for a motion to accept this as a valid Measure Q expenditure as presented to the CBOC tonight. Do I,
A motion to approve.
okay, do I have a second?
I can second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Tad, just FYI, I might drop off and then I'll join via phone, okay? My computer's
Okay.
dying.
Thank you. Okay, so it looks like it passed with no opposition.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to find it in here and quick question.
Sure.
Number 112, the sewer system, was that the one that, I remember talking to Melissa about this, that,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so Edco is the company, and they have come in and, sorry, that's a large one at 73,000. I should have commented on that. Edco came in and cameraed the whole site, videoed sewer lines, drains, all of those types of things. They have been an extremely frustrating entity to work with. Very difficult to adhere to coming out and getting there when they said they were going to get there, delays on their reports, all those types of elements. So we have some additional work that we have to do just to verify some of the drains. I was just talking to Jim about this yesterday, and we're going to use another firm for the remainder of any kind of camera work that we need to do. And
well, wasn't this originally like 150? Was this the one? I thought there was something with California Water or what?
oh
was
no,
it?
that's a separate issue. That's the water tie-in, the fire water tie-in, and that one we're still very slowly working our way through that. Yeah, and that one, you know, we will see some expense with Cal Water when all is said and done with that, but it won't be anywhere near the 150 because we had that tie-in in the contract with Burco, and they will be able to complete most of the work. Cal Water's contractor will do the part that Burco can't, but there is some engineering costs in addition to paying for the small portion of Cal Water's contractor. So we'll be sure to report that one to you. EDCO is really frustrating. So is this fire water tie-in through Cal Water. And right now we're waiting on a variance to come from the state related to all of the requirements to protect the water source, et cetera. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Clarification.
very welcome.
Is that going to come in as a change order, or how's that going to be presented financially later on?
You know, I'm not sure, Tad. Yeah, we'll be sure we bring it to you, but I'm not sure. That's a good question.
If it's, Brian, if it's Burco work, it'll be a change order. If it's additional costs, if it's Cal Water doing their own, they may bill the district, I
I
imagine.
think, yeah.
Invoice the district.
And Burco's pretty confident their work will not exceed what was already in contract for this part of the project. They'd be very surprised, and especially now that they can only go so far, and then the Cal Water, their contractor, has to take over the actual tie-in in those parts of the project. So,
Right, so
thanks for bringing that up, Julie.
So you'll see on the budget and expenditure report, if there's an agency, a separate agency that we interact with, whether it be city, Cal Water, any kind of other public agency, those end up in the agency costs, district and agency costs in our report. So you'll see that show up in that.
Okay.
All right,
Moving on.
Moving on.
moving on. Okay, so the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items the board has not seen. So you are seeing these before the board, which is what the sequence of events I like to get to, because that way you see it as an oversight first, then the board can have their reassurance that you have looked at it, and that gives them an extra added level of confidence in it as a valid Measure Q expenditure. So you're going to see a number of contracts here. The first one is, these have to do a lot with the extension of the project. So Yuba Sutter Inspection Services is our project inspector, our state required project inspector. And you're being asked to approve an extension for him, Bob Boyer, in the amount of $28,000. And that's a not to exceed hourly amount. So we don't get, if he doesn't do the work, we don't get billed for it, but he now knows this project very well. So he has a good sense of how much he expends and how many hours it takes in a month's time. So it extends it from the current June 1 to August 31st. So you notice a bit of jogging on the time. I asked Jim yesterday, why does this only go to August 31st? If, for example, you just saw Burco's extension went into the middle of September. And if you notice on the contract, which you have as a backup, this does not include the windows in the kitchen. So we're going to see another extension from Yuba Sutter Inspection Services to get us through the end of the project and include the windows and kitchen as well. But for now, we know we wanted to bring this to you and then to the board.
Okay. And I didn't see, oh, never mind. A quick question. You know, in this first paragraph, he mentions middle school and high school projects. Is that just not being specific?
He had done some work on the school farm project as well. So that's that reference.
Okay. Right. So
when we pay his invoices, we break that out by farm versus middle school.
right.
Okay, good.
So this is an action item.
Okay. So we have another action item. So I will take a motion to approve this as a valid Measure Q expenditure. So can I get the first motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good.
Next one is an LPA time extension. LPA is the architect for the John Knight Middle School. They also need a time extension. And so this is it's a time and materials hourly, not to exceed 45,000 for the contract administration piece of this. It would be an amendment to the existing, it's under the terms of the existing master agreement, but we now do their contracts on an hourly basis. It's a less costly way instead of being as a percentage of the project. So the 45,000 is for an extension, and it should be through to the end of September. And hopefully we won't need them more than that. So I'd ask for approval as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
Any questions on this? Okay. I'll take a motion to approve.
I
this.
actually have a question. I'd like to go back really quick. Ms. Lee, remind me again, or the rest of us, why did we extend again from May through September? Was it COVID related, or what was it primarily?
May. Oh, you mean the Burco?
Yeah, like the JKMS project in general. Don't include the kitchen and the window, just in general, the
Right.
project, the DMS.
So I believe the original way back when completion was May, then as scope increased, it went into July, and now it's going from July to September. And that is due to COVID, and that is also due to mostly the scope increases that we have added.
So when we request, or not we, when the contractors request for these PCOs or change order requests, there isn't any days associated with them?
Not individually. What they're, believe what they're doing is it's not per individual change order. I think they would show it on a, yeah, I agree, Georgette, that's one way that I've seen it with contractors, but apparently I'd have to ask Jim, but what they've done is probably accumulate it, calculate which ones they need to have days on, and then go from there. So that's what you see in change order 6.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just different the way we do it on our side on the county. When a contractor requests for change orders, they associate time with it. And part of that is, you know, we make sure that we pay them for their overhead, their general conditions and their bonds and all that. When I see time extension, it's a little difficult to swallow because contractors should have known already from the get-go when they're requesting for additional work or, you know, doing additional work, they should be saying how many days they're going to need, right? Because it will extend the contract. Later on, we will not be paying for these time extensions because it should be built into the contract. I guess I should review Burco's contract that, you know, typically general conditions, overhead, bond, and all that should be calculated into the actual change order request for that particular item. It's just hard for me to grasp that, you know, we're paying whatever 66K for time extension on change orders that they should have already told us how many days they're going to need, and it should have been built in already on that cost.
Well, it is already built in the cost of that change order. You see the extension on this one is $66,000.
No, what I mean is that, for example, if they're submitting a change order specifically for one item, let's just say for 10,000, and they're going to say, I actually need a whole month, right? I need a whole month or whatever. Then usually in a contractor's contract, you know, the general conditions, the superintendent, all the time associated to make that change order work, it's built into that specific change order request, that $10,000.
So you're talking about like the line item itself.
Right, like, because time extension, that's your overhead. That's, you know, that's the people, and not the people, but the superintendents or the, you know, contractor staff or whatnot, admin, you know, helping out with this time extension. My concern is just that I wish that the contractors, and again, Ms. Lee, maybe I need to read the Burco's contract and how change orders are written in the the district's contract with Burco, but I'm just used to seeing, you know, time extensions for a particular change order that's built into that cost.
So what you're seeing, Georgette, is a summary of many, many, many line items. So that would be a huge stack of paper if you saw all the detail on each line item. So change order number 6 includes all those line items, and I don't see them. Jim sees them since he's the project manager. And it could be that there are particular items that include days, but I'm not sure of that.
Okay.
So they do scrutinize those. And I believe that, you know, for the amount of scope increases, this is my opinion, my humble opinion, the amount of scope increases that have happened on this project, I think we've had very little time extension on it. They've been able to incorporate these things into the existing project, which we like. We like that. So I think that they've been fair. I appreciate your comment on seeing it, and perhaps on the future change orders, you could see if there is a day associated or 2 days associated with each, with one particular line item, I could ask Jim to include that.
So when you're looking at Burco's change orders, I mean, to tie into Georgette's question, they're not taking into account any extra time that the inspectors or LPA have to put in as a result of these change orders.
No, these are just Burco's costs.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, the inspector, you just saw the inspector, you approved that one. That's separate because the inspector has to be there now longer. And then LPA, we're now talking about LPA being there longer. So those, each company is going to ask for additional time. If that makes sense.
It makes sense.
I don't like it, but it
Is
makes sense.
frustrating? Yes.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that this is happening, but this is part of the contingency. When we break out contingencies, we see project contingency, we see construction contingency, and we see owner's contingency. Those are all on your budget and expenditure reports. So the construction contingency is the hard costs. The project contingency is the soft costs associated with those. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing soft costs of architect and inspector as being additional costs. And those are in the budget. So we expect this to happen. If they didn't ask for time, they would ask it later down the road. We'd see it at closeout.
Okay, so I have asked for a motion to view the LPA time extension as a valid measure Q expenditure. I think, did somebody already give me my first?
No, I move that we approve this as a valid measure Q expenditure.
Thank you. Second, please.
I'll second.
All right. Very good. So let's vote on approving this as a valid measure Q expenditure. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Lee.
Okay, next one is also an LPA item. I regret to say these probably should have come to you earlier, but I caught them as I was doing the budget and expenditure work. They didn't go to either to the board or to you. So we're bringing them to you for a look-see and action as a valid measure Q expenditure. And then they'll go for ratification to the next board meeting. So these are, again, associated with some major scope increases that have happened with the school. LPA asked for, because they have to do additional design work, they asked for these extensions. Again, Jim Bombachi on the School Site Solutions part of the team had determined that a much more cost-effective way, in other words, a savings to the district, is to get this taken out of the master agreement as far as the cost, the way that the fees are figured out on a lump sum basis with percentage, much less costly to do it on a time and materials basis hourly, not to exceed. So we achieved, I know you can't see it because we don't know what it would have been had it been proposed to us as a lump sum, but I believe Jim started to get these lump sum addition requests from LPA, and he put a halt to it and just said, nope, we're going to do it on an hourly basis. So I applaud his effort on that. He's trying to protect the district on that. Are they still frustrating? Yes, but to be expected. They're not out of the blue. So one is a ramp reconfiguration. The infamous ramp going between building A and building B has had an enormous amount of work that is required by DSA to be done on it. It, sort of like the firewall issue, it ballooned into this thing that we find kind of head scratching, but nevertheless, it's DSA required. The issue was around fire sprinklers and other items that had to be done on that ramp. So the LPA work on it was not to exceed amount of $27,500. And then the second one was the re-roof of the buildings, not building A, but the re-roofing that's happening as part of this project. And you see it's replacement of roofing systems for B wing, C wing, the multi-purpose room, music, gym, restroom, and the adjacent covered walkways. So all of that roofing done, and the design work that had to go into that, and working with DSA as well. That's an amount of $44,000. Again, not to exceed hourly. On the invoices as they come in, Jim scrutinizes those invoices to make sure that that's reasonable time that was spent. And so he does look at that. He sends them back if he thinks that they're not reasonable, and they resubmit the invoices. So that's how it works on the end when it gets to the payment. But this would be Those two items, again, you see the dates were in 2019, actually, July 2019. So my regret is that they're coming to you at this late of a date, but we caught them and here they are. And it was definitely work that was needed and work that was done.
And that's my doing, not Lee's, on missing getting this to you guys earlier. So I apologize for that.
So this is all complete now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember during the walkthrough, you showed me the, what was it? The ultra expensive 6 overhead fire sprinklers or something like
Yes,
that.
ridiculous, $40,000 of change order. And that was in change order 6 that you just saw. Horrible.
And that's the only fire suppression system in the whole building. It was just on that ramp, if I remember.
That's correct. Yes, the ramp that has no combustible materials in it.
Yes.
Yikes.
Yikes is right.
Okay. And the roofing, that's all complete, just to be clear.
Almost. I mentioned that earlier, that we're at 95% on all the buildings, except for that small gym multipurpose room where the materials are there but haven't been installed. Right.
And then on this work, the vast majority of the LPA work would have been in design, which would have been complete already. They are still doing the contract administration piece of both of those. So there's some invoices that are still kind of trickling in on those.
Good clarification. Thank you, Lee.
Ms. Lee, I got a question for all these. Thank you, by the way, for sharing the contracts with us rather than me trying to Google it on the district website.
Sure.
The question that I have is, all these contracts you're presenting to us, are they reflected anywhere on the June 30th budgets that you've provided, or are they under pending changes, or are they reflected at all?
They're reflected already in there because unfortunately on these two, for example, the work went ahead. Superintendent Dolan authorized the work, it was done, and then we caught it that it really needs to go to the two bodies, you guys and the elected officials for ratification. So yes, you see it's already reflected in actual expenditures and within budget. Most likely it would have been added into LPA whenever the expenditures started happening and I caught wind of these. So it is in there already, yes.
But what about the extensions and the upcoming other contracts you're going to show us? Are they reflected at all as pending, or?
I believe I've already put, let's see, I have to remember whether I've put in the increase the budget. Georgette, I'm not sure. The extension on LPA, I'd have to go back and look. And then the extension on Yuba Sutter, I believe I put in, I may have put in a remark that it was pending. That one I probably didn't put in because it hasn't been approved yet by you guys. So probably actually both of them, if they're in there as pending.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so those are great questions, by the way. This is an action item as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
Very good. So I will take a motion to approve these LPA contract additions as valid Measure Q expenditures.
I make the motion to approve it.
Could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Okay, Lee.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you guys hanging on this. We're slogging through these contracts. This is kind of actually a typical thing as we're kind of, I always want to try to get as many contracts to you ahead of time before the board, those last two notwithstanding. And so you'll see this sort of kind of slogging through all these contracts, but that's part of the process. So I appreciate your time on that. The next one is, I alluded to it or mentioned it, talked about it before, this idea of these older, what we call legacy projects needing to be closed out. So the Division of the State Architect, DSA, requires that an architect do this. They will not interact with me. with the likes of me or with Brian. So they require engineers or architects to talk to them. And so RGA, Rainforest Grout Architects, who is in our architect pool now, I reached out to them and asked them, would they do this work? I was very pleased with it because they have a stable of, I think, 3 what they call project management assistants, PMAs. And part of their work is to do these DSA closeouts. A nice young woman named Gina Johansson is who I'm working with mostly. She has done a zillion of these things, unfortunately. And the interesting thing about this is that this is not RGA's work, right? They're actually taking on work from an older architect firm, and they take on this work that is not fun work. It's not sexy work. It's not a fun construction project. But of course, I am dangling the Anderson project or another project in front of them to make sure that they do this right. And they're performing very well. They're very responsive. And like I said, Ms. Johansson has done a zillion of these. And I could tell by the way she responds and the way she's handling her working with DSA. So I can tell you folks, I'm very, very pleased with RGA so far, that they got chosen in our pool. I think we did a good thing. We found out, Gina has found out that there are many other projects that are not closed out. I was telling Superintendent Dolan today, there might be as many as 19 projects. So we're gonna prioritize those, and we're concentrating only on the one right now that we need to do, which is the JKMS site. The next ones that will be prioritized will be Anderson, and the next ones after that, Tremont. And there are unclosed out projects at every site, if you can imagine that. Most of these are small portable projects that went on over the years. And like I said, oftentimes paperwork got done up to a point, and then lo and behold, fall comes around, the kids go into the portables, school year starts, and we march on to the next project. So this is very typical of school districts. Dixon is not alone in this. When DSA uncovered this and found out and put their foot down on this, there were 16,000 projects in the state that had not been closed out. Now, the vast majority of those, thousands of them, were LA Unified. So, here we are. So it's good. We don't want to be held up on any projects, so we want to be proactive, especially on Anderson. Get those closed out. Not sure how many there are at Anderson, but you'll be seeing additional contracts come to you for RGA to do that work. I may give some to ArchTechnica too. I've reached out to them to see their experience on it.
So these guys are functioning as paperwork detectives, basically.
You got it, Tad.
Absolutely right, Tad. It feels like forensic detective work. I'm out there in the archives. Mark actually is helping me a lot. The former facilities director, John Calise, he did scan a lot of old plans into the system, and Mark gave me access to look at the plans, and I was looking at these old blueprints and blowing them up to see if I could see the very faded DSA stamp number on them, and these are 30-year-old projects, and so we, logging them in, and so we'll have a log of all of those, and we'll check those off as we go. If there's 19 of them, we'll get those done.
Well, like you mentioned Los Angeles. What do they do if there was a fire, the people are dead? There's just no way you can use forensic tools to put this back together.
Correct. So what happens, DSA started to realize that they opened up this can of worms, right? So they started to realize as districts tried their level best to get these closed out, but then they were presented with deceased people, firms that no longer existed. Actually, firms that didn't want to talk to you anymore. They didn't want to take the effort to go into the archives. As you can imagine, some of these were architectural firms that still exist, and a district might go back to that firm and say, hey, you didn't close this out correctly, and it was a little rough, and then you might have them try to get more fees from you, from the school. It's been quite a process, shall we say. The inspectors sometimes ask for more fees because they got to go into their garage and get in the boxes. I mean, this is the level of where it is. So LA Unified, along with everybody else, would start presenting these things to the DSA, DSA realized they had quite a problem on their hand. They quickly put together a second process, and they called it alternative process. And they want to see the district do a good faith effort and try to get all the required documents. And then if there's an explanation like the person is deceased, no, we cannot contact them, they don't live in the state anymore, we don't have any clue, then they will give you some indulgence on that and give you a waiver on some things. So it's a process. Some of it is you do have to, some districts have had to go out and do more work. A lot of things have to do with getting an inspector out there, and that's, I know from Gina that we will have to get an inspector out there. So we'll try to use Bob Boyer, who's already there, to do that work. So that's kind of where it is. This one, long-winded explanation, but this one is for $5,000, not to exceed. It gets us started, and they're already working on it because we need to, it's a time issue. So it's for the work to close out two, hopefully, but I have them concentrating on JKMS right now, and Anderson's taking a back seat. So this is a not to exceed. I believe, I don't know where this is going to end up, but they're usually in the neighborhood of this amount of money for the architectural work.
Okay. Any questions before I make the motion?
I got a comment. The $5,000 is not an expense as related to the problems that sound like, because there's no system of follow-up on these to see these projects are closed out. A very simple solution is withholding a final payment, a portion of a final payment to all contracts before they finish their job.
Correct. And that's what should have happened, Gary. Actually, that's a great point.
Should have, but could have.
It didn't. Back in the 80s, 90s.
Happen in the future, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, the other thing is that DSA, there really wasn't any need to do it. Should it have been done? Yes. There was no penalty. So now there's a penalty. And so people, in fact, DSA has totally revamped their system. If you guys are familiar with home construction or home renovation, a city issues your permit, the inspector has a card, right? An inspector card, and they come out and they'll check off. That's what happens now. So they've totally taken care of the problem. And Gary, you have a good point. And we have in each architect contract, we hold out money until the thing is closed out. But for the past projects, we still have this agony. It's terrible.
And real quick, I'll say one of the ironic things about this is that some of those closeout issues are going to be for portable classrooms that were at Dixon High School and have since been demolished and hauled away, right? That's going to be, those portables came in probably 5 or 6 different, maybe even more than that, projects over the years. And that's where some of the issues are going to be for projects that the evidence of no longer exists.
So what I would say, Superintendent Dolan, those actually become the easiest ones because all we have to do is give them proof that they no longer exist.
Right, yeah, yeah. But still have to jump through the hoop.
Still have to jump through the hoops, yeah.
Okay, I will take a motion to approve the RGA expense as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor of approving RGA as a valid Measure Q expenditure? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got 4. Very good, Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to take this this next contract because it does involve School Site Solutions Incorporated, and so it's not appropriate for Lee to present this, or she is available to answer some questions. So we originally contracted with School Site Solutions back in December of 2018. That was the point in time shortly after John Calise had left the district. He was our facilities director at that time. I'll tell you before I talk about the contract a little bit, I don't know if I could be more pleased with the service and support that we've gotten from School Site Solutions while they've been with us. I'll just start with Lee and these meetings. And I think if we did not have her on board, I and whoever else was helping me would be frustrating the absolute heck out of you and not providing the level of service that you're currently getting with information and explanation and reports and such. And the support from Jim over on the project and the other smaller projects that we've done has been excellent as well. So we are coming up to the point where we have a timing issue here more than we have a finance issue. The original contract was to expire here. And Lee can correct me if it was in July or August, and we're obviously not going to be done. And since the district has not made an attempt to hire a replacement for Mr. Calise or restore that position or do anything along those lines, we do need to maintain support from a project management firm, both on the construction side and on this compliance and reporting side. So this is amendment number 1 proposed with School Site Solutions. And it's a not to exceed contract. It's based on 2 financial elements. The first is that estimated 2.75% maximum of project expenses. And you can see in the backup, I think it's on pages 3 and to the top of 4, it shows how those are broken down. And then I think the more significant piece is the hourly rate of $145. So we pay for what we need. That maximum figure there on the front page of $474,499 plus the reimbursables at $13,750 for a grand total of $488,249. That's the not to exceed amount. And we work at that. Some of the reimbursables tend to be almost exclusively lodging for Jim Bombachi. He lives out of the area. And so if he comes up on a Wednesday night or a Monday night, or because Jim typically works Tuesdays and Thursdays anyway. So there's occasions when we pay for his lodging to facilitate his time here. The $145 an hour rate is the same rate that was included in our contract from December of 2018. So we're actually not seeing any increase over our original contract price on the hourly basis. So I'm again, this is for you guys to approve as a legitimate Measure Q expenditure. This would be something that obviously the board will be asked to approve. We did review it with Luke and Melissa, the governing board facility subcommittee members. So they are familiar with it, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And if I can't, I'll ask Lee to help me out there a little bit.
So I think the question is for Miss Lee, actually, because it's about money. Miss Lee, so is this, again, I'm gonna ask this question, is this reflected anywhere in the project budgets or not yet?
Not yet. It would go under my time, which Georgette, you correctly, when we were working on the annual report, you pointed out that we needed to do a good job at distinguishing my time, which is under program, versus Jim's time or my time under specific projects. With this contract, we'll be able to divide that up a lot better on our end and be able to give the invoicing correctly in a better way. So it still says as pending because it's not, hasn't been approved yet.
So it's been reflected in one of the project budgets as pending.
Yeah, so if we go back, I believe under, what I did was I put it into, it's in the budget, but it's not under commitments yet. So if you look under program, there should be under, would be on the first page. I alluded to it when we were talking about it. Under program management, estimated 25, it's on the facility program, bottom of the first page under section 300, all consultants, program management at an estimated $25 an hour, 25 hours a month for the next, remember this goes through the end of 2022, or yeah, through the end of fiscal year 21-22. So it goes beyond. So there's 112,000 sitting there. And what we see here on the contract amendment is, I think, 43,500, because this is for 1 year. So it's in there as a as under budget, but it doesn't appear yet under, well, it has under, it doesn't have it under here yet, under anything. So it's just budget. So it will be added for your next time. If you guys approve it and if the board approves it.
Oh, really good. Okay, so hold on really quick. So I'm sorry, maybe I'm not reading this right. Are we adding 488 to the 300?
Yes.
62? Okay,
Yes.
so where is the 488 reflected in the project budget?
It would be under individual projects.
Oh, individual. Okay, but so like, for example, what you had told me, the 112.
That was
the
me.
112.
Yeah, that,
That was you. Okay.
yeah, that would be my time on, like I said, stuff like CBOC, things that don't pertain to any one particular project. And then if you go to individual projects, things are, they would be under, what it will eventually go under is individual projects, such as
Right.
Johnson, Anderson, Tremont.
Okay, so hold on. So for example, if I go to the JKMS, I'm sorry, this is so small. Project management, that 35K project, wow, only 35K, that can't be right. But
That's not Jim's part. That was budgeted prior, and I believe nothing really has been spent too much on that. What is under there is construction management under section 600.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And so it's not reflected, let's see, yeah, that's under the budget, but you see as the only things that have been approved so far is the original contract. So it will be added in.
Okay, so, okay, I think the critical question that I really have is that, do we have this funding, or are we moving money somewhere else? That's where I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I understand. And it is within budget. Yes.
Within the budget, allocated budget.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Kind of a long way to get around it, but yes, I should have realized that was your question. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I should have been straightforward.
So this is just an open-end contract with a amount not to exceed.
Hey, Gary.
Am I describing it correctly?
I think so. Although I would say at this point, there is a scope of work through June 30th of 2021. So this is for about that year level. And, excuse me, based on that, when we look at, I guess I just point out, when we look at the fee schedule, so it estimates 20 hours per week for 52 weeks for 1,040 hours and an expenditure of $150,800. So that's very, very unlikely to come anywhere near that amount because we know we don't have plans. We're not going to bid within this year unless something really unusual happens, I think. So, we would be continued success here in our partnership. More than likely what we'd be doing is looking at Amendment 2 somewhere next May or something like that to put more time on the contract. So I think this dollar figure on this contract is extremely high given timing around some of the projects.
So I guess I would add, Superintendent Dolan, on the Anderson one, I asked Jim, that's me and Jim put together.
Okay, okay,
So
thank you.
what we're going to be doing is working with the architect, doing scoping, programming, working with the staff,
Okay,
if they're there, working with the staff, doing committee work with the staff, and actually we will be putting in some time.
no, I know, yeah, sometime, but yeah, it's hard to force, for me, and you can correct me, seeing 20 hours a week for 52 weeks, that just doesn't seem that realistic, I think, given all circumstances, but I could be off.
Yeah, I don't, we just did an average of that. I think
sure.
you'll see it flow back and forth. Yeah.
Right.
And again, it's a not to exceed, and hopefully it'll be a lot lower, and then we roll it into the next one, next year.
Right, yep.
Okay, the only thing I see is the Dixon High School Farm Project. I assume that's not Measure Q and just will be
No, it's not.
backed out at some
Correct.
place.
And all we're doing over there right now is waiting for electrical hookup, which hopefully will happen in the next month. Yeah, you won't see anything for Measure Q out of that item.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to comment and thank Lee. He's always at all these long meetings. That's the longer charges. Hey, you want to come sit tomorrow night at probably the 7-hour board meeting? No, but thank you. You're always, I mean, your reports are comprehensive and you're great and answer all the questions. So just to thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, it makes my job as chair of this wonderful committee a lot easier. So I've enjoyed working with you.
It makes my job as the superintendent of schools a lot easier as well. So we're all benefiting from Lee Coop and School Site Solutions Incorporated.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
just
you.
real quick, Brian, how did you find Lee?
Well, that's an interesting story. I'll try to make it quick. You know, Lee worked in Vacaville Unified for a bunch of years, and we might have crossed paths once or twice during that time, but it really had no kind of significant, really any kind of relationship at all. And so as John was departing and as I was entering into panic mode, and the governing board perhaps even more so, you know, I was talking to people and looking for firms, and I knew that Lee had retired. And so I tracked her down through the magic of the internet and shot her an email saying, hey, here's my deal. And she responded and said, you know, I'm working for this firm now, School Site Solutions, so I'd have to talk to the president, John Dominguez. And so we started talking, and this worked out that well. So it's not what you know, Tad, it's who you know, right? And Lee's been the right who for us on this work. So
Very good. Okay, so now I'm looking for a motion to approve this expenditure to School Site Solution minus the farm issue as a valid Measure Q expenditure.
I motion to approve it.
Okay, can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of approving this as a valid Measure Q expenditure?
Aye.
Aye. Very good, Brian. Very good, Lee.
thank you. That was a lot we just went through, and now your report.
Yes, so Superintendent Dolan and Lee Coop, thank you for the effort and time that you spent in getting the extra documentation provided to me and Georgette. I realize, one, it was a lot of work, and two, it came at a time where with COVID and everything else and trying to figure out distance learning and on-site learning and everything else, it was a real challenge in pulling it all together. But we got everything we wanted, so thank you very much. Georgette was able to get it in to me Friday just in time to be posted by Rose. So I have not had a chance to put in my edits and changes. So we'll use this time to look through the report and compile a list of items that might need attention, editing, changes. And as soon as we can make those changes, we'll post it on Measure Q website. And what I'm going to do is basically go through the whole thing and come up with a 3-page summary that the newspapers will publish, and then just point people to the website if they want additional information. Because obviously, a 30-some page document, the newspapers won't touch that.
So we're still, it's open for review.
Yes, because this now incorporates all the additional information that we obtained from our request at the last meeting in May.
Well, I went through the report. I sent an email after the last meeting because I didn't hear that discussion. I didn't know what happened to the report for sure. And the last part of the meeting, I wasn't even logged in. And I had some items. Some of them are pretty basic and some are not. So I'm going to go through them here real quick. And if I can forward something to Georgette, if she's still in charge of putting the report together, if that's the wish of the committee. On page 5, the 3rd paragraph, and I know this came up before, we said that there was both on bond issues, again, these are small amounts, both bond issues, there was a premium. And we said it's due to an increased interest rate. Well, if somebody asked me, what do you mean by that? I don't know. Was the Fed interest discount rate decreased so that made our bond more favorable, or was the bond coupon rate higher than the current market value? Why would people pay a premium? And this is a one-time amount and is used to repay the bond, as you know. But the higher interest rate is paid by the property owners for the life of the bond. So I'm just, if that question was asked of me as a member of this committee, I couldn't answer it properly. And I don't know why we decided on that rationale. But
the investors paid more money for these Measure Q bonds than expected. Why that was the case, hard to say. Maybe they liked the guaranteed income. Maybe they were getting a more favorable interest rate than they expected. Payments from the bond would be a better way to express it. But we will look at that. I will just put a question mark here, and we might be able to adjust that.
Well, what we've said is because of the increased interest rate, and
that may not be correct. It was just that
going for 3. This is 3 1/4. I'm willing to pay a little more money up front to get this higher interest rate over the life of this bond. So, there's, the other solution would be not to put in the reason for the.
I think that's the easy way, because you can get a dividend payment from a stock that's really high, but people won't buy the stock because they're concerned about other issues. So it's complicated. So maybe we just take it out and solve the problem.
Okay. On page 9, the first paragraph, our superintendent, Brian, you've pointed out that this was the first time the district has used this method. Well, that's not a correct statement, because we did use Prop 39 to get bond funds when we built the new high school. That was in 2003, 2002. I don't know the exact. So, and you know, we've already addressed this. And having said that, I would suggest that, you know, again, do we really want to bring this up again at all?
Yeah. That looks to me like that's left over from last year. We already covered that.
Right. And just as an add-on, you know, if they would have, you know, I would suggest that they would do the district have a after action report so that when the bond issue comes up again, they can look back and say, here's what we did right, and here's what we did wrong, and this is what we suggest to prevent it from going wrong.
Interesting idea. When would you do that? Because as Lee pointed out, this expenditure of funds may go on to what, 2027?
Well, you know, it could be information accumulated through the, you know, through the life of the bond.
Mhm. Gary, I actually think that that's a good idea. I have done it on a construction end, and we called it a lessons learned, just to be in the more colloquial way of saying it, but I like your after action report, that's fine. And we would do a lessons learned on all the projects and say, what did we do right, what did we do wrong? And oftentimes, you know, I have a file that I just stick a piece of paper in. You know, if something happens on a construction project, I note it in real time, stick it in that folder, and then after the projects are done, bring that up and talk about lessons learned in a report to the board and to the CBOC. So I think that's actually a great idea.
Yeah, that's a
Really good idea.
That's a term that's used a lot in the military too, because they're big on explaining how things happen, why they happen, and good and the bad and the ugly, so to speak. So anyway, going to the page 10 of the website, that's the website paragraph on page 10. I just, you know, the code mentions a number of things that have to be on the website. Meetings, agendas, and minutes, we've done that. Reports to citizens, we've done that. Annual financial performance audits, I believe they're in there too, or should be. And also it says all documents received by CBOC. Well, with the volume of documents that we have been receiving these last meetings, that's a lot of items if we follow the, you know, the ed code. In addition to that, the committee added to keep the ballot queue, measure queue ballot statement on our website. And the mission, our mission statement, I believe it's there. Our bylaws and our membership, which is there, and the project list. If we posted the audits, the project list would be in there, and also the audit always includes the ballot statement, I believe. I'm sure it's in there. But, you know, I'm just saying there may be some things that we might want to put in that paragraph, just suggestions.
So one thing we probably need to do, Gary, is point out that when the Measure Q meetings are posted on the school district's website using that Granicus system, everything, all of these documents are embedded there in that agenda, which is a really nice way to go back and get them because it's associated with the specific meetings. So now it becomes a question of whether we want to go in and pull all that stuff off and put it on our specific website.
Well, and as a practical matter, I don't think I would suggest that because anybody that's really interested is probably, with a little bit of help, could find what they need. But I'm just pointing out that's what our ed code says, and sometimes circumstances change. And for example, I've seen the amount of volume of documents provided to the CBOC when Vacaville was doing their $100 and some million or more. I don't know how much it was. I mean, they had a stack of documents. A guy gave them to me that was on the bond oversight committee. Would you look at these and help me out? You know, he didn't have a clue, but
Yep.
it was hundreds of documents. So,
But I think we can fix that by pointing out how a concerned citizen or an interested person could go in, looking at the dates of our meeting, looking at that agenda and seeing all the attachments there under each agenda item. It really is an elegant system to do it, but we probably just need to put some time in writing it to explain it that way.
well, probably, these are things that were put in the ed code when, Prop 39 was passed, and the system that we're using recording meetings probably didn't exist at that time.
Not
and
even
probably
close,
wasn't
yeah.
even anticipated. That was the future. So I don't think anybody's going to get in any, be criticized for not putting all these documents on. Page 11, paragraph 1, we state, this is about the audit, and it says the 2018-19 audit. The audit will be posted to website as soon as CBOC receives the document. I don't think at this late date, I assume that we have already posted that.
It's there.
So we probably just want to take that out and just say,
Yep.
it's another item posted on the website. Paragraph 16, page 16, paragraph 1, we talk about soft costs, and I know now we have a percent. We just saw it tonight. It'd be nice if we had a percent to show, because, we've kind of mentioned that as a positive item and said, well, they're very, well, what is it? And even the auditor stated that the district was very conservative in charging support costs to the bond money. That's when we were talking about the payroll costs that are being staff payroll costs. So that may be, if that's available for this audit period, but I suggest it may not be. But we might want to, I don't know what to do. If we don't have that, we don't have it. In page 25, there's a schedule there, and it says the RFQ for construction management services canceled due to consideration of overall program delivery planning. I need my memory refreshed. I do remember the construction management services were discussed at a meeting, but I don't know or don't recall why that we decided not to.
Where is this, Gary? What page?
I'm sorry, it's page 25. There's a schedule there. I think that's the only thing that's on page 25. It's just a schedule of all the, let me go down. I think it's the second item on the schedule.
And I can just describe what that refers to, Gary, and I don't know if this will answer your question or not. So Mr. Calise was still here, and they had begun a process, even though he was here, to contract with somebody for some construction management services. So that overall big old process was altered then with his departure. So, and it says the process was canceled due to reconsideration of overall program delivery planning. That was going to be kind of a limited level of support. And so when he left and we went with School Site Solutions, that was that little shift or big shift.
So basically, you're saying that, School Site Solutions was a substitute for hiring a construction manager.
Yeah, pretty. I think that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
So I remember the last, for the high school project, we did have a construction management.
There was, yeah. We had a full-time director of facilities, Ed Eusebio, and then we had Van Pelt Construction Services were the project managers there.
Okay, here's just a small one, page 27, paragraph 2, line 5. Let's see, I'll read it. That's just adding a word or part of a hyphenated word. Let me see. Damn it. One page too far. Okay, go down on the second paragraph, go down the 5th line. It says, if problems were detected, then additional follow would be warranted. And I think they meant to put in follow up. So
Thank you.
that looks like that's a simple one. Page 28 on the budget, on the audit. I think I'm right there. No change in the financial reporting were suggested. Well, that's true, the financial. But I had some comments that I would like to put in there under the audit. I would have suggested at the last meeting if I would have been there. And because we had quite a discussion, I did, with the auditor on several points, which didn't get into the minutes either for that February 7th meeting. And I addressed the comment regarding advising district governing board on various projects. And, I made a point that there's no wording in the aid code. This is in the audit, and there's no wording in the ed code that we our oversight goals include advising, and advising can have different meanings. So I don't think we some people take that as advising as directing, recommending, guiding, instructing. Or it could simply mean informing or notifying. And the auditor agreed. He said, well, it's a matter of language. I said, well, language is important. People take words, and we're not in the business of advising the board. And I think they're very much aware of that. So anyway, the auditor says, well, we'll think about changing the wording in our next audit. So we also discussed about the funds, the salary of school administrator or other operating expenditures. And I don't believe we need to beat that dead horse anymore unless circumstances change. So the most important question that I had, comment that I'd like to see in the performance audit, was a comment about the review of supporting documentation to verify that all applicable bid process requirements were satisfied. This was and is of interest because our contract review board has not, committee, excuse me, not board, contract review committee, has not been provided access to requested contract information to verify a competitive process was followed. So my comment and question to the auditor was, I would like for the auditor to expand upon this verification of the bid process. Specifically, were service type contracts subject to a negotiating process review to assure there was a competitive process? And this would include verification that requests for proposals were issued and that proposals were reviewed and replied to the RFP. The auditor stated that this is not his exact, but I looked at the video again of the meeting. He stated that review was performed of selected contracts to assure a competitive process was followed during, including requests for proposals were posted, proposals were received, and there was board approval. He said that they did not necessarily verify if at least 3 bids were received. This requirement is included in the California Public Contract Code 10340. And it simply says, except as provided by subdivision B, state agencies shall secure at least 3 competitive bids or proposals for each contract. Any agency that receives less than 3 bids or proposals on a contract shall document in a manner prescribed by the department the names and addresses of the firms or individuals it solicited for bids and proposals. In other words, that's a standard thing in our state agency for public agencies. If the auditor is doing that review, as he said, that satisfies one of my concerns that I've had from the beginning is that, you know, we look at the contracts and we say, oh yeah, these are valid contracts, but we don't take that extra step at looking back and see did they become contracts under a competitive process? And you know, I don't think this committee is limited on things that we need to look at. I think transparency, and that's why I've made this a big issue for the past, how many years now? We finished 3 years, didn't we, already? So I want to add some, these other things, committee can do what they want. I do want to send some wording to add some wording on the, under the audit that I just spoke about, that what the auditor disclosed that he actually was doing during the course of his audit. I think that's important.
Okay, Gary, write something up, send it to Georgette and me.
If I could clarify one thing, Gary, I believe the 3 bids received, that's for state agencies. It does not apply to school districts. So it's for state agencies, but school districts are not required to receive 3 bids.
Something tells me the Department of Education comes under state agency.
So, the school district is not a state agency.
I don't, excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't know how a school district could be excluded when the school districts report to the Department of Education at the state.
Yeah, there's many, like how Georgette talks about what the county does. She has a lot of different rules than what we do as a school district. So there are different rules, especially for state departments, state agencies. The school district is a sovereign agency, and a school district has different rules for bidding. A lot of them are very similar, But the 3 bid requirement, I agree with you on your comments about ensuring a competitive process. And actually, the meeting that Georgette, Tad, and Brian and I had, we addressed a lot of those. And I hope that I address those in my follow-up comments to Georgette. But that particular one, I just wanted to clarify that's not the case.
Well, I'll take your word for it, but I'll verify it.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Miss Lee, can you take a look at the added charts that I put in?
I did.
I had some like bolded red items that I need confirmation, or I had questions that needed to be followed up. Can you just quick look at them and then maybe get back to me?
Absolutely. And Georgette, I just want to say I really appreciated that you incorporated, you took the time to consider how I followed up on it. And I really like your formatting of the charts. They look really nice. And I noticed the red comments, and I will respond to those. I think we're down to just a few comments, which is
Yes.
great. So I really think it looks like a great report, Georgette. And I do appreciate that you took the trouble to incorporate a lot of the changes. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for taking the time to provide those. Thank you.
Yes, I can do that. That'll be part of that final comments coming in.
Okay, and as I told Brian, I'll write up something for the newspaper. And Lee, I'd appreciate if you take a look at it and make sure I have everything accurate.
Okay, and Georgette, one more thing. My name is still spelled wrong.
I know we didn't have time to fix that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My bad. I'll fix it.
Thank
Well,
you.
you took notes on that, Georgette, and I didn't follow up with you because we had like 15 minutes to get this thing to Rose.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other comments on the report? Okay, we got no one on from the public out there, so let's speed things up. Now we get to go to elections.
Wait, I'm sorry, Tad. Hold on. Did we
Sure.
provide timeline on those changes?
I can get the changes back to you within the week.
Okay, and then
A week from today.
okay, and then what about the rest of the CBOC members? Do they have? I think Gary had additional comments or changes. When can I get those?
Oh, you're pushy. I will start working on those, and I will have.
Can we say the end of July? Is that fair?
Oh, that's more than fair. It won't take me that long. I'll have them to you within, I like to do things when my thought process, my memory is not blocked. So you
Okay.
will have.
This is Andrea. I'd like Georgette, Tad, thanks so much for all the hard work. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, and we all appreciate it. That's why we try to help out as much as we can.
Yes.
No, I will get those to you as soon as I can.
Okay, Tad, if you don't mind, can you give me a deadline of like sometime early August to email you hopefully the final draft ready for issuance?
What's the
How
date?
about Friday, August 7th?
Sure, that sounds fine with me. I mean, I think the next step was to post this. Is that correct? I mean, we're already receiving supposedly public comments, right? So this is more of just a cleanup and then release.
Correct. And then I have my job of summarizing this for the newspapers because they're not going to deal with 35 pages.
Right. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Cool. We done with that one? Very good. So get to move on to elections. I was not overwhelmed with the feedback for people wanting to become chair and vice chair. I'm happy to do it for one more year, but according to our bylaws, it's the last year I can do it. I can only serve as chair for 3 years. And if I take the position for another year, that's it. but I'm happy to do so. Gary, are you up?
I elect Tad to be chair again, if that's possible.
I think this is one of those situations, Tad, where, you know, people are in the line, volunteer to be the chair, please step forward, and everybody else takes a step backwards.
Right, yeah. Well,
Yeah. I don't have a say in it, but I hope you'll continue as the chair. You're doing a super job.
so I'll do it for another year. Thank you for the support. Luke, thanks for the hand clap. That was really cool. Gary, can I talk you into being vice chair for another year?
To be perfectly honest, I don't know how many more meetings that I will be attending. I think my time is about over with this committee, so you know, we can take no action on it, but I wouldn't. You know, the vice chair is only important if the chair is not there, but I don't want to commit. I don't think anybody should commit to something that they're not going to at least be serving for a year. I don't think I will continue for another year.
Okay, Georgette, could I talk you into being vice chair? I don't think it's any additional work because I will continue the role as chair. The only extra work it might be, you might have to run a meeting if for some reason I'm not available.
I really prefer not to because I have many projects coming up at work, but
It's no more work. It's no more work. It's in name only.
okay, so it's name only. I'm only gonna do it if Tad continues to be chair and he's gonna chair the meetings. How about that?
That sounds like a wonderful idea.
Okay.
All right, I will.
But I would open it to the other CBOC members if anybody else would like to.
I'm good.
Well, we got to get some new members in. We got to see what Robert's going to do. So I'll ask for unanimous consent that I'll serve as chair and Georgette will serve as vice chair.
Unanimous.
Yes.
Great.
All right, excellent. We're done with that.
We're still down one person.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
are.
are.
So tomorrow, can I make a suggestion tomorrow night when we have the 1,000 people that you anticipate for the school board meeting?
Sure.
Can we throw it out there?
Yep. Good idea.
And, you know, I've tried to let people know we have the CBOC during the school board meeting. So I do my 3-minute update and beg people to log in, attend, see what's going on, but it hasn't worked.
Well, I'm going to do my parent association that I'm no longer doing that. So I hope someone in there wants to jump in and be the high school PTO chair. So
Yeah.
we shall see.
I know Melissa was looking at someone that might be interested. I'll have to follow up with her.
Okay.
So, okay, moving on to website. I'll work with Mark to get this stuff posted. Contracts, we've already reviewed them. Audit committee, I don't think we have anything.
I have a question. Can I ask, when's our next meeting? July, August, September? Is September our next meeting?
Yes, September 16th, I think.
Can I ask that we get some pictures or something of the progress? Because I'm not sure if I've seen anything besides passing by.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, I will. I don't know how long ago it was now. It's probably 6 weeks ago or something. I was able to bring Tad and Melissa and Luke over, kind of in their roles as chair of this and the board subcommittee. So we'll certainly also look for the opportunity to give you a tour over there as soon as is feasible. But we'll certainly do some, we can provide some photographs, video, all that good kind of stuff
Hey, Georgette, remember I sent you all those photos. You actually used them, in the front of your report from the walkthrough I did 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just like to
Yep.
see more. That's
Okay.
all. Something more colorful. How about that?
Yes.
Something that besides
Maybe-
all these backbone stuff.
And Brian, if you can organize the walkthrough at some point, that'd be great. And it'd also be nice to just go through Anderson and Tremont real quick, just to visualize what's going to happen. I think
Sure.
that would be
We
helpful.
want to do a before walkthrough on Anderson for sure.
Yeah.
What
Okay,
happened to the big window in the front of the high school that's got the plywood over it?
Say that again?
There's the big window on the front of the high school. It has plywood over the front of it.
Trying to remember why that was. Windows will be replaced. There was something, I can't remember if maybe we had some dry rot or something, but
I just assumed it wasn't vandalism again.
no,
Okay.
no, it was not vandalism.
okay. Any special items for future meetings? All right, seeing none, I'm ready to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for attending. 9 o'clock, not too bad considering all the documents we had to go through. Superintendent, have a power drink to get ready for tomorrow night. Hang in there.
I need a power nap, not a power drink. Yeah,
Right.
thank you. Thank you all for your good work and time. And yeah, we do have a big decision ahead of us. Luke is in this meeting and Lloyd, and our board members have been spending a lot of time in meetings leading up to this. So if you have a quiet night at home, well, I know Pat will be in the meeting and Julie will be in the meeting. And I don't know if Georgette has time, but there are 3 committee members with who are parents of kiddos. So we will keep plugging along and keep working on our facilities at the same time. So really appreciate all of your guys' service and time. And take care and stay healthy, please.
Okay.
Bye,
Good night, everybody. Mark, sign us off.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll see Mark tomorrow night too.